So why challenges? They can deliver massive income, awareness and engagement at a relatively low cost and a level of control that fundraisers have never known before. And this is so true. We've all been there where we've put things together. There's a lot of heavy lifting to it, a lot of cost. We think we have a great idea, we push it out there, and then it doesn't work. But the Facebook challenges really do give you a level of control that we've never really known before as fundraisers. There's huge potential for income growth. At the Matter, we started trialing the challenges in 2018, and you can see the level of growth that we were able to experience in a very short period of time, bringing our income from 3 million euros up to 6.6 million euros in 2020. So some other key reasons then: engagement. We were able to engage in a period over 80,000 people directly through our challenges. Our digital campaigns in 2020 reached over 3 million people. I know for some people in the US and maybe in the UK, those numbers might seem small, but in an Irish context, that's huge. When you're looking at a population of roughly 4.5 million in the Republic of Ireland, that's huge levels of engagement. So increased awareness for our cause, and bigger, most importantly, as fundraisers, this is what we're all in it for. It's the impact for the patients and families at the Mater Hospital that we were able to have that huge impact. And that's ultimately for all of your organizations, what you're looking to do is to make an impact for your cause. But before we go any further, let's get one thing straight. And I think it's really important that we talk about this as well, because it's something that some of the pieces that I know Nick has done and I've viewed, and other conversations that I've had, people always ask me, well, this is just a fad. It's just like the Ice Bucket Challenge. Is it really going to last? Is it like TikTok? No, it's nothing like TikTok. It really, really isn't. These are rooted in fundraising principles. Nick, you might want to jump in here, because some really good insights from Give Panel that we were able to share here.
Yeah, I think one of the main reasons I get customers saying to me, "Oh, is it over? Like, should we launch the challenges? Are there too many challenges happening? Maybe challenges are saturated. Are they saturated?" Those kind of things. And I'm just taking the UK as an example. I think the number one reason why organizations think that Facebook challenges are saturated is they see the ads in Facebook, because it's an ad-driven model, right? Like it's Facebook ads is how you drive it. And actually, that can be a false perception, because actually there's no empirical evidence. If you see some ads, you're targeted because you work in fundraising events. And so it's not real empirical data. But if you look at the actual data, so if you take away that kind of like that perception, you can see 10 ads for challenges and think, oh gosh, that's it. Like, challenges are over because you've seen 10 ads for challenges. When you think about it, 10 organizations running challenges isn't that much. So we estimate that in the UK, this is just looking at the UK. In other markets, it's slightly different, but just the UK, 300 challenges, we estimate around about 100 organizations. So if the average is around 2,000 people doing a challenge, that's actually quite high, because a lot of those challenges are quite smaller organizations doing more local stuff. That's 600,000 people that have done a Facebook challenge. And I think just for error's sake, let's double it, just in case I'm wrong, right? That's 1.2 million people. And in terms of the amount of people you can target on Facebook, that's still less than 3% of the people you can target at Facebook in the UK. So the evidence suggests, and the great thing about challenges, Tom, you'll probably talk about this, is that it's not just for marathon runners, right? Or people,
yeah, very much so,
who can cycle like from a long distance. It's like for everyone. And so you can target a lot of that 44 million. And so the evidence is we've only reached 2.7% of our market, even if we double it. I don't think that sounds like saturation to me. That sounds like we have a false perception because we've seen some ads. So that's the point I wanted to make.
Thanks, Nick. It's really important to understand, as Nick touched on there, there's real data and insight in behind these challenges, not only in terms of the Facebook ad side of things, but also in terms of how they're developed as a fundraising offering. They are campaigns. They're not events. They're not a one hit. And if you look at the different stages of a challenge, it's classic campaign fundraising. It's awareness, interest, conversion, participation, follow up. And I'm not going to go into that today. Nick and his team have some great offerings on that. And Adrian and his team have some great offerings in terms of the ad side of things as well. But really what I'm talking about here is trying to keep it on a slightly higher level. But the methodology and learnings that you will, that from the challenges can be applied to other areas of your fundraising mix. And we're going to touch on that as we move through the presentation. But if you have other campaigns, a National Bake Day, Tea Party Day, the same methodology can be applied and will work because it's classic campaign fundraising. So let's look at what we as fundraisers have traditionally thought of as challenges. And this will kind of bring you into, well, where did this all come from? So traditionally, we've thought of large groups of people coming together to do, long treks along the Great Wall of China, for example, climbing Killy, running marathons, 10Ks, that type of thing. Large groups of people all coming together, all building to that one big day. But this is a key insight that I learned, particularly during my time at Crumlin and working with people who were signing up for overseas challenges. We had over 500 people a year. Again, in an Irish context, that's huge, who were signing up to overseas challenges. And that's pretty much a 9 to 12 month engagement period every time somebody does that. Okay, so you learn that when somebody's signing up to do a trek, do a marathon, even doing a 10K, okay, there's so much that they see that we don't see. And what is that? It's the hours of training on their own, early morning runs, early morning cycles, getting out there. For example, if you're doing a marathon, everybody thinks it's about that 26.2 miles on the day. It's not. It's about 6 months of running 500 miles. That's what it takes to run a marathon. So hours, days, weeks of training alone, covering miles that nobody ever sees, nobody cares about. And let's be honest, before challenges, we all had friends on Facebook who would post their map my run and just did a 10K, just did 20K, just did 5K, whatever. And it got no engagement. It got no likes. And that person feels deflated and wondering, well, why doesn't anybody care about this? So we thought, what could we do? Could we bring this all together and make every mile, every step part of the challenge and make it all matter? So what else did we need to understand? So who takes part in fundraising challenges? Why do they do it? And what are the barriers for them doing it? So key learnings, again, through my time at the Matter, the first thing we did when I joined the Matter was to actually survey our donors and supporters and get to know them, get to know what's important to them, what do they want from the organization, what ways do they want to engage, and what do they want to see the organization doing, what was important to them. But also through my time in Crumlin, meeting thousands of fundraisers, you learn that the people who do fundraising challenges are not your club runners, they're not your club cyclists, they're not elite Ironman participants. They are leisure runners, leisure cyclists, people looking for structure, people looking for engagement, people looking for a path to maybe better themselves, but also along the way helping others. They're looking for a sense of achievement, a sense of validation as well in things that they're doing. Barriers to entry for that, as we found in the years of, as challenges have started, overseas challenges started to fall back. Some of the one-day events were starting to fall back, and we've got to be aware that people have busy lives, hugely busy lives. We've caught up in this bubble of COVID where we've all been working from home and there hasn't been much to do, and we thought about, well, challenges have exploded because everybody's got loads of time. Well, that's not why they were built. The challenges were actually built to be able to offer people something to fit into their busy schedule because they didn't have time. And now, as restrictions are lifting, as we're moving back to normal life, the bubble is bursting, it's fading away, it will be gone within the next 12 months or so, and we'll be fully back to normal life, and everybody's going to be chasing their tail again. So it's important to keep that in mind. You've got to be offering people, your supporter, your donor, what works for them. So, Nick, do you want to maybe jump in with these questions and maybe see if we get a little bit of engagement from?
Yeah, absolutely. So we wanted to take a bit of a breather and just ask you some questions. So, would you say your organization really knows its donors and supporters? I love what Tom said about going into the Matter Foundation and doing a survey. The first thing he did, he wanted to find out about what his donors and supporters have done. When was the last time you guys did a survey? Do you really feel like maybe sometimes like it's difficult for you to kind of respond on chat, but if you want to just respond on chat to that question, how do you feel like it? Do you feel like you're good? Do you feel like mark yourself out of 5? So 5 would be like really, really, you've done the research, you've got insights, you've done the surveys, and like 0 would be like, actually, you've kind of just fallen into challenges without really asking your donors and supporters what they want. So just give me a 0, a 1, 2, 3, or 5. 5 being really, really good about how well you know. So guys, Tom and I, we're just sitting in our house, so we really need this engagement, encouragement. Okay, great. So we've got this coming in. Change to all panelists and attendees, otherwise other people can't see. So we can see here, Tom, that we're talking about 2s and 3s and 1s. So again, this is various, but it feels a little bit like we need to do more on this area for me. It feels like So Carolyn Bray from SANS said 3 to 4, very important for many of our supporters to be able to do something in memory as well as help well-being. So we're actually seeing the in memory thing starting to become a big thing. We've got some really exciting stuff about that. Not in this session, but for Give.
A huge area of opportunity. And again, that's something that we ourselves and Adrian and his team were starting to look at a couple of years ago. Huge opportunity for in memory fundraising through Facebook and digital.
Yeah. And so actually, there's a Dementia UK case study from a company that did some insights for them, which has led them to the dog walking idea, which led them to why they did the dog walking challenge. And they raised over 2 million doing that. And so that little bit of insight was like, actually, there's a lot of dog walkers in our audience. And when we combine people who are kind of care about dementia and people who are dog walking together, it becomes this really, really powerful community. So there's a really good example of like just asking your donors and supporters like what they're into, what matters in their lives. Something we have to constantly do, Tom, right, as well?
Yeah, like totally. It should be ongoing. It should never just be a one hit. And there's so many different ways of doing that as well. It's not just surveys, picking up the phone, talking to your donors, getting out and meeting them when you can as well. Like with the challenges, for example, you will see that most participants for challenges are roughly 30 to 55 years old. That's the demographic for challenges. Traditionally, we would have seen more men in running challenges than women, a higher percentage of women in walking challenges, but that's changed because lifestyles have changed. You know, other things to be aware of, and what are people doing in their free time? The amount of people that were running 10Ks tells you that then, okay, if someone's doing multiple 10Ks, maybe they want something that is perceived as the next step in a challenge, but they're not ready to go and do a marathon, but running 100 miles in a month is a tough challenge. You know, so it's all about putting these, it's a jigsaw, and you have got to have all the pieces and you got to put them together, and you got to go keep on refreshing that information that you have.
Yeah. And what's interesting as well, this is a kind of side thing, but we're, you know, one of the things that's been limited Facebook to start with was this idea of a 14-day fundraiser. That's the default when you start a fundraiser on Facebook. But we've actually developed, we're developing so you can have a fundraiser that is over a year long on Facebook using Give Panels tools. That is like available like basically now using custom Facebook fundraisers. So again, when we first started challenges, we had those kind of limitations. Now you could do a year-long challenge. You can innovate with this kind of thing. Okay, great. We also did a poll here. Tom, I did a quick poll about how many Facebook challenges organizations had done. So and 50 people have answered this. So it's quite a good data set.
Yeah.
15% have not done a challenge. Okay. So if you haven't done a challenge, this is going to be really interesting for you. We're not going to go through the details of how you actually run a challenge, but we have so many resources at Give Panel for that. 25% have done one. So 40% of the organizations on this call have done one or less challenges. That's amazing. So guys, there's definitely more to come from this. Interestingly, 25% have done more than 5 challenges.
Okay.
So there's been some organizations who have really started to scale challenges. So what the next question is, what fears or concerns do you have about challenges? So what are some of the top fears or concerns that you have about challenges? If you can post in the chat, you can change to all panelists and attendees. So William, I can see your comment there, William, but you need to change to all panelists and attendees so that everyone else can see it, but I can read it out. So Carolyn says capacity and stewardship.
Okay.
William says, we're based in the US. The biggest issue for us is to overcome with regard to doing challenges has been the fulfillment and shipping costs. So the t-shirt, Tom, which I believe you were the man that pioneered giving a t-shirt to everyone. I'd love to hear thoughts on that.
The reason you do that is because it's positioning your product, right? So if you want to compete against events such as the the 10Ks that people are signing up for, or marathons or other events that are literally out there you're competing against. Your competition isn't just other charities. Your competition is everything else that is competing for your donor supporters' time. That's what you're competing against. So if you want to position your product, so to speak, on at a high level, you've got to be able to offer what they get if they sign up for those other events. A good quality T-shirt is important to runners. A medal at the end, these type of things are important to people. They may seem like it's not essential, but it does allow you to put your stamp on the event. It allows to increase engagement. It will drive leads. It will drive conversion as well. But it also it leans into your brand, and it's important that people look beyond just brand identity when you think of brand. Brand is every engagement that people have with your organization. Yeah. So it's how you interact with them, how you deal with their queries, how you help them to fundraise, how you follow up with them. That's all your brand. It's not just brand identity. And I know that's one of the things that comes up a lot for some organizations, is when creating ads and different creative and different collateral for all types of fundraising, is that battle between brand and message. But it's important to look beyond brand identity and don't get pigeonholed into thinking your brand identity is your brand. Particularly in fundraising, it's so important to remember that the key thing to your brand is the engagement that people have with your organization.
Yeah, and it's an investment in so much more. I mean, if you just work it out on a cost per registration model, you're just focused on the wrong thing. You're focused on costs. And it's great to hear a fundraising director to think bigger and say there's so many other benefits of the T-shirt, that giving the T-shirt to everyone. And I think we've got some organizations, Tom, who just send T-shirts only to people who end up raising money. And there's just so much added benefit that it's really hard for me to describe. So it's great to hear it from a fundraising director.
What we're going to do, we're going to come on to that as well, and how the importance that the T-shirt can play in actually opening doors for other avenues of fundraising as well. But it's about increasing your brand awareness. Like the amount of people that were running around Ireland in 100 miles in a month T-shirts, for example, and creating a level of awareness for our cause that was never there before. It was huge,
Yeah,
it really is important.
A few people.
But what I would say, sorry, Nick, just on that as well, it's important that people look at the CPA, cost per acquisition for challenges. You can't get fixated on cost per lead. Yes, cost per lead is what marketeers should be looking at, 100%. But your cost per acquisition is so important for your fundraisers. And then looking at how does that cost per acquisition map up against your actual income at the end. If it's costing you 20 euros to recruit a participant who's raising on average 200 euros, it's a pretty good CPA.
Yeah, and I think we've had we have sometimes incredibly low cost per lead, and actually, but you have a terrible cost per acquisition, because you're getting people in the door through like an offer that's too good, like very, very good, but that it actually doesn't lead to fundraising. And so you have to measure cost per acquisition. And I think a lot of people here focused on Facebook ads, just like, I think that's part of being good at this model is being good at Facebook ads. And Tom, since you started this model, Facebook's been through all sorts of challenges with iOS 14 and things that have messed around with the cost per lead. So there's a bit of, of just the concerns coming through that, like, it's like that Facebook ad bit and getting people into your challenge. Being one of the challenges, if that makes sense. So yeah, some good chat there. And guys, the chat isn't just for our benefit. We're not going to go through everything, but you can read through that and engage. So I think just for the time, we should crack through the next bit of your presentation, Tom.
Okay. So what we had to do then in terms of creating the challenges was to look at offering a challenge that people could do at a time and place that suits them, that provided the structure and progression that they needed for a challenge, was easy to sign up to, that makes fundraising simple and straightforward. That's so key to it as well. The fundraising is so simple and straightforward. This idea, the concept, I first developed in late 2014, but at the time we were waiting for the right tools to come on board to actually be able to make this so much more straightforward. And then once Facebook start bringing out their fundraising pages, it made it a no-brainer to go out with this as well. And you also want to provide that sense of achievement. That is so important. And that's why it's so important, again, knowing your audience. What is a sense of achievement for that audience? So that's what drives a challenge, is somebody who's signing up to a challenge that might be to walk 50K. If that's somebody who's regularly walking 50K, or is, it's not much of a push for them, they're not going to raise as much, because everybody knows that in their social set, this is easy for them. They aren't pushing themselves. But that sense of achievement for the individual and for their peers is so important. And one of the key things that we learned from the overseas challenges was the value of the companionship and encouragement and a sense of belonging that people got from signing up for those overseas challenges. And where did all those people gone? We'd seen a massive decline in overseas challenges over the last 10 years, but those types of people hadn't gone away. Where were they? What was the new offering for those people? How could you offer them that sense of companionship and encouragement? And Facebook groups was a natural place for that. To be able to bring that all together was absolutely a no-brainer. But most importantly, we had to be able to offer something that was cost effective for our organization. When we started into this, we were a small organization who didn't have a history of running large events, didn't have a history of having a huge database. This was all about really starting from a standing start and building from there. And that's why these all made sense for us. So traditionally, won't spend too much time in this, but everybody knows traditionally what you'd be looking at in running a challenge or an event. There's a lot of heavy lifting there, a lot of man hours, and a lot of cost that goes in. Most importantly, that expensive ad space that we can't control. And let's be honest, and most charities are in a position where they don't spend a lot of money on advertising, so they don't have real buying power. So how many times have you seen a charity's saying, okay, we're doing outdoor and we're doing radio, and they're on the graveyard shift on radio ads. They've got a billboard down a lane that nobody ever sees. And then they're just wondering, well, why hasn't this worked? Because you put all this together, PR plan and all, and then it's fingers crossed and just hoping this works. So that brings us to why Facebook. And it's quite simple. Fish where the fish are. As simple as that. Let's not overcomplicate it. We've got to live in the modern world. I know there's some people would have issues with Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook. We got to forget about yourself. It's all about your target audience. It's about your participants. And remember, the more you know about them, the more you know where they are, you know who they are, you know what they're interested in. And that's why Facebook makes so much sense for fundraisers. The Facebook demographic maps perfectly onto the supporter demo. It maps perfectly onto fundraising supporters across a number of different activities. And it's a no-brainer for fundraisers to really be looking at this area. So targeted advertising for lead generation. You're not just spray and pray and hope it works. And you've got the data then to see what has worked, as opposed to hoping that somebody on reception writes down the right thing when somebody calls in from after seeing a radio ad and where did you hear it? Oh, was it the outdoor? Was it the paper? Was it was it TV? What actually worked? It's so important that you know what actually works for you. And control of your budget. We started with a 1,000 euro test ad spend, but that started with a 100 euro test. So you have the control. So if it's not working, you pull back and you say, okay, we've got to change something here. Or if it is working, you say, okay, let's go as planned. Or you have the opportunity to scale even further. But what's so important is you have to be agile. And we'll come on to that in terms of when we're talking about organizations. You've got to be agile. You can't it's not an old model where you just put it out. Okay, let's see what happens. And in 2 months' time, we'll analyze everything. You've got to be working throughout the campaign as well. But you have the complete control of your budget and a level of control with your creative as well, which is so important. Nick and the guys, again, have loads of resources in this. I'm not going to go into it, but you know that you're creating multiple creatives, and it's about what works, and it's about adjusting that throughout the campaign. So it allows for easy sign up and fundraising, with a brilliant user experience. And that's so important. Again, when people go on to social media, they go on to it to be entertained, and to be informed. but they don't want to be bouncing off. And Facebook don't want to be bouncing off. And that's why they created Facebook fundraisers. They don't want people bouncing off their platform. And when users go on to social media, they want to be able to have an easy experience. If they sign up for something, they want that to be easy. They don't want multiple forms to be filling out. They just want to be a straightforward process. And vital for fundraisers is social media, and Facebook being the perfect one for fundraising demographic. It allows you to build a community, to build awareness and interest in your cause, to build affinity to your cause. Social media is the new word of mouth. That's what it is. So that's why it's so important. So, sorry, just something stuck here now. There we go. So here's this timeline, just in sense of how we approach things in the matter. So one step at a time. Remember that. Don't try and boil the ocean straight away. Particularly those organizations who haven't done a challenge, and those who have done challenges and you're looking to scale up. Don't have to overstretch yourself straight away. You've got the control. So we started off by testing 4 challenges in 2018. As I said, low level expenditure at first, but we budgeted for the cost per acquisition. We budgeted for the t-shirts. We budgeted for fulfillment. Was done initially in-house. Huge work by the team, incredible work by the team to as we saw an avalanche that we didn't expect, to be honest with you. But the team responded to that brilliantly. But remembering that your budget, once you budget for your cost per acquisition, you're going to be in a good place. But if you just budget a cost per lead, you're going to be disappointed, because you're not going to get people right to the end line just from the cost per lead. So it's so important. So we saw huge results. We saw roughly a 10-to-1 ROI from those tests. But key to that was we saw lead generation to conversion to participant at roughly 3-to-1, which maps onto classic campaign fundraising that I've seen throughout my career. So the most important thing is digital allows you to do things at scale at a very good cost. So it's about volume, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everything that happens on digital operates in this bubble and is this unique world. It's not at all. It just gives you bigger reach. So that was when we knew we were really onto something, was then when we could see that from lead generation to conversion mapped onto classic campaign fundraising. That told us there's something in this, and we were able to generate huge levels of leads at a very low cost. So in 2019,
mention that stat again, Tom, the 3-to-1.
3-to-1 from lead to participant.
So
3-to-1 conversion.
3 leads to a fundraiser that raises at least €1.
Yeah, exactly. And that
we're still seeing that.
And you'll see a consistency even in major gift fundraising. We'll work on a 3-to-1 conversion ratio. So it's when you see something like that, that's a key stat to tell you, okay, there's something in this. There's really something in this. So then we scaled. We've honed in on 3 challenges for 2019 to scale up. And we started to see, obviously, we saw increased income, but again, our conversion ratio to participant from lead to participant remained at roughly that 3-to-1. We saw some economy of scales in terms of cost per lead, but that varied on challenges, but it was still within the range. Some went a little higher, some went a little lower, but it was still well within the range that we were looking for. 2020, then we scaled again. And in February 2020, we kicked out of just breaking 1 million. We were this close to breaking 1 million on our first challenge in February 2020. And the reason I've highlighted that is because look at that timeline. This is all pre-COVID. So I really want to stress that point to people today. The reason the challenges work is because they fit for your participants and your supporters. COVID was a bubble, and we will probably never have that time again. So it's not a case of people having loads of time. In fact, it's completely the opposite. It's of people being time poor, and that's why these challenges worked. And we know that because they told us, because we surveyed every single person who ever took part in the challenge, and we know what worked for them, and we know why people weren't taking part as well. But in 2020, then, when COVID did hit, all the learnings that we had from doing challenges over the previous 18 months or so, we were able to apply those learnings to other areas of our fundraising. We were agile, and we were quickly able to move much of our fundraising to digital. We were able to quickly launch digital appeals, which raised over 300K in 1 month. Using the learnings that we had from doing the challenges, we were able to adapt and make our organization very, very visible and the go-to in Ireland for supporting the fight against COVID. And it was all about having those learnings and being set up for digital rather than trying to react in a crisis. So this brings us on to organization culture and the importance of this in successful challenges. For challenges to succeed, your culture has to be right. And what do I mean by that? It's so important from the very, very top, from the chair of the board members, chief executive, director of fundraising, and the fundraising team are all on the same page. Is there a culture in your organization for trying things, for doing things differently, for really taking, calculated risks? I'm not talking about stupid risks where people run out and, do all kinds of mad stuff and then wonder why it doesn't work. As you can see, it's all about progressive steps. But is that culture within your organization to actually work that way and to try things and for people not to get hammered if it doesn't work? That's so important. Do you have the right people in the right roles? And I know somebody brought up the question of capacity and managing the stewardship side of things. We weren't able to get going on the challenges until we had the right people in place. And that was so important. And having somebody within your campaigns team who has that knowledge of digital, has that passion of it, understands how social media works is so important. We were lucky to be able to move somebody within the matter into that role who was a natural fit for it, was a people person, totally, got it, and understands that for this to work, it's about engaging with people in the same way as you would if they were sitting in a room in front of you. For example, I'm not going to go into too much about managing groups now, but if a simple one that comes up is where people have a question and you just post a link and point them to a Q&A, rather than actually saying, bringing it into a real life setting and saying, okay, if you were in a restaurant and you wanted to find the toilets and you went to a member of staff and they said to you, follow the signs, how would you feel? As opposed to telling you where the toilets were and then saying, oh, you can also follow the signs. So you can answer a question and post a link. You know what I mean? So it's those type of things that make digital work when you treat it the same way as you would a real life situation. That's why having the right people in the right roles is so important, from people who are engaging with your fundraisers, as a director of fundraising yourself, chief executive, chair, all the right people in the right roles is what makes this thing work. And key to it all is trust, that there is trust. And I was lucky in the matter that there was huge trust from our board and from our chief executive to not look at me like you're an absolute head case. What is this you're talking about? To actually say, okay, let's give this a go. Let's see if it works. And there was huge trust there. And then likewise from myself, it has to be trust then down to the team who all deliver. And also as well, this is really important. I think a lot of organizations look past this, is having trust in the people you're working with as well. The agencies you're working with, contractors you're working with. Trust them. They want it to work as well. And I'm not talking about blind faith and not questioning. Of course, it's important to challenge, and challenge is healthy. But if you don't have trust at all levels of the organization and everyone working on a project, then it's more likely that it's not going to work. So it brings us on to a couple of questions about culture. Nick, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, brilliant, Tom. There's some real gems in there, and I love this because you've lived it as a fundraising director, and that's we talk a lot about tactics, but this is kind of the higher level organizational culture stuff. So how would you, if you had one word to describe the culture of your organization, what would it be? So I want everyone to put one word in the chat Like I said, Tom and I are just in our homes. We don't have a lot of engagement with, we can't see you. So it's really good. Okay. Copying Netflix. Wow. There we go. That's an interesting one. Experimental, ambitious, innovative. These are good words. They don't all have to be positive words. Risk averse, supportive, separate. Interesting. Learning, curious, love, ambitious, supportive. These are good positive words, right? I expected people to say kind of, backwards, slow, those kind of things. But I think sometimes we might think the charity sector is a bit behind, but actually these are good, exciting words. What words would you describe, Tom, of the culture that would make a really good fit for Facebook challenges?
Progressive, I think, is the most important. Well, if I had to pick one word, I'd say progressive.
And you don't mean progressive in a kind of US politics sense. You mean
no. I mean as in, you got to be ambitious. You got to be looking to try new things. You got to have ultimately, what is the end goal of your organization? And that is to raise funds, and that's to make an impact for whatever, whether that's homeless people, cancer patients, whatever. How are you going to make the most impact for those people? And if you're progressive, you're moving forward. That's what I mean. If you stand still in any walk of life, well, then eventually, people are just going to pass you by. But also, I think what's
around you, so you have to adapt to survive, right? Because things change around you. And I think one of the big challenges we see is, like you've said it before, but Give Panel specializes in fundraising where you go and meet your donor, you go and meet your fundraisers where they're at. Right? You fish where the fish are. You go and meet your customer where they're at. And that's a new world on Facebook, on these other platforms where you get less data, you get all these things. So you have to kind of overcome that change from kind of the traditional, we get all the data, we get everything perfect,
Well, what I would say is you can get the data. It's just a multi-step process.
Yeah, we get a lot of data.
But what I mean is that, like, if Facebook and digital platforms allow you to engage with your donor and get closer to them, like you've never really been able to do before, without sitting with them for long periods of time. And if you build trust, people will give you the data and the information that you want to get, but they're just not giving it to you up front, and it's not, that's the thing. It's a multi-step process. And we'll come on to that, but that's not so alien to fundraisers. And you actually take a step back and think about it. Fundraisers do that all the time. So that's really what it's about. It's about multi-steps to build trust, to build engagement, and then get buy-in. And it's all a cycle.
Just not expecting it all to happen in that first kind of interaction.
That's it. It's setting realistic expectations, and again, bringing it out for real life situations. You don't the first time you meet somebody, expect that they're going to tell you everything about them. It takes time. It takes you got to build and develop that trust. And even in a fundraising context, think about face-to-face fundraising, right? You might think that that's all instant, but within that engagement, there's actually a process. There's introduction. Okay, so awareness of the cause. There is engagement, the conversation. There's then the consideration from the person about whether, will they sign up or not? And then there's conversion, or else they don't. But it's not straight. They don't just go, hello, will you sign up to support organization X? No, there's actually an engagement. It's, will you speak to me? Can we talk? And then explaining about the organization. So even things like that are multi-step, but it's, you have to break it down and understand that, rather than just thinking that as fundraisers, a lot of the time, I think, are working under huge pressure to deliver targets with little or no resources at times, and that's, if there's pressure to just constantly deliver, that doesn't give people time to breathe, to think, and to allow for that multi-step process and understand that, you can actually deliver more if you just take that a little bit more time.
Love it. You're talking my language. And I think a lot of, you're resonating, I'm sure, with a lot of people listening to the call. Guys, we want to have some time for the Q&A. So let's do a real quick question around buy-in for challenges. Do you feel you have buy-in for challenges within your organization in general and new things? Yes or no? Quick one. So we've got yes. This is really good. And I think, it's because we're talking to the right level, Tom, as well.
Yeah.
These are the change makers in their organizations. They're in charge of budgets and everything like that. So that's brilliant. So
great, really positive.
Awesome. let's finish the slides. Hopefully we'll leave some time for Q&A. Tom, I don't think you have to rush off at the top of the hour.
No, I'm no mad rush. Don't worry.
We can take some Q&A. Do use the Q&A feature in Zoom. We can't always spot it on the chat. So if you do want to ask a question at the end, Tom and I can facilitate some questions with Tom. They'll be for him at the end. But yeah, carry on, Tom. Let's try
and get through things. So why challenges work and what are here to stay? I've touched on this already. It's all about the participant. If you look at it, commercial marketing as well is all about the customer. And as fundraising organizations and fundraisers, you should be all about your donor, your supporter, and in this case for challenges, the participant. So they have busy lives. They're going back to those busy lives. There's so many different things that are competing for their time, and people are chasing their tail. They want to do things, but they want things to fit in around their lifestyle. So remote challenges is what I like to call them. The reason that currently Facebook is the best platform for driving them, but what they actually are is remote challenges. They're not Facebook challenges. Challenge doesn't happen on Facebook. Facebook is the best platform for facilitating them. That's all. It fits their busy lifestyle. And remember, they're already doing it. If somebody's signing up for a 10K, they have to train. If someone's signing up for a marathon, they have to train. If somebody's signing up for a cycle challenge, they have to train. So all you're doing is giving further purpose to the challenge. And that's not to say that you should only do these. Yes, you do the other one-day events as well, but they can all work together, and we'll come to that now. Yeah, but it is a win-win. Remember that your people are doing challenges because they like them and they fit for them. But it's a win-win for organizations. Nick has already touched on this. Over $200 million raised through challenges for organizations in 2020. That is incredible amount of money raised. And just think of the impact that that's making for the people who need your organization. That's the most important thing. It's about those people. Ultimately, our job as fundraisers is to connect your donor and supporter with the impact of the end at the end. I always see it that we're like a bridge. Okay, we're facilitators to allow those wishes to come true of the people who are supporting your organization to make that impact. So it's not about us in the middle. It's about how do we facilitate those people to support your organization to make that impact. But there's also an open goal, which is created by these challenges. And it's really about what you're going to do then with all of these leads that have been built up, this product that's been developed. How are you going to integrate that into the rest of your fundraising? So how challenges can work with other areas of your fundraising. Well, you've generated all those leads. We've talked about the t-shirt, the value of the t-shirt, whether to give it, not to give it. Do you give it to only the people who do the challenge or those who don't do the challenge? Well, here's a simple thing to think about. You have 10,000 leads that sign up, and you got 7,000 of them that then receive a t-shirt. And of that, 3,500 don't actually take part in the challenge. But why aren't you calling those people? Get on the phone, give them a call, find out why they're not doing the challenge, because that's going to give you more data to feed into the next challenge that you do. And also, it allows you to engage with them about your organization and talk to them about maybe becoming a regular donor. And you will convert at roughly 8 to 10% of those people that you engage with at a very low CPA, the cost of the t-shirt if you want to factor that in, or the cost of the phone call. So it's a no-brainer not to engage with those people, and it is a very cost-effective way of recruiting new regular donors. Your participants can become advocates for your cause, and we've seen this happen, right? We've all looked at the Charity of the Year program in Company X, and how do we get in there? Oh my God, oh, how do they do it? Oh yeah, the staff vote. Who are their staff? Their staff are people who are engaging with challenges or other areas of fundraising. Again, the more you engage with them, you talk to them, you ask them, will you nominate, does your workplace have a Charity of the Year program? Will you nominate us? That's how you create your advocates. Challenges are also the perfect offering for corporates to engage their staff. Corporates are looking at staff health and well-being. They're looking at engaging staff at all levels, and they're looking at making a positive impact in their community. Can anybody think of anything that could possibly help them do that? The challenges are the perfect way of doing that. And again, we saw that at the Matter, where we were able to package this directly to corporates using Facebook ads to target employees, to bring this in to their workplace, to suggest it to their CSR committee and take it on board. and we were able to generate a couple of 100,000 in our last 100 miles. Well, when I was there, sorry, from that. So, and I know that the Matter have taken that on board and ran with that and made huge success of it. And I know other organizations are doing it now. It's a natural fit. And remember, these are campaigns. So the methodology will work for those other campaigns that you have. Your bake day, your tea day, all those other campaigns that you have, it's exactly the same methodology and it will work. Again, vitally, you now have a database of people to talk to for future challenges or future events. So it's not, I'm not saying challenges are the only thing, but they should be part of a diverse fundraising mix. And you can even build, the original idea of the challenges was actually to have an event at the end where you bring all those people together to finish off on their last 5 or 10K together. So does things like this can work, but you've got to be innovative with it yourselves as well. So when budgeting and planning, don't look at your each fundraising area in isolation. Look at your acquisition budget and spread that acquisition budget to the areas that it's going to work best. And it's important to have a diverse mix in how you spend your acquisition budget, and digital should be strongly featured in that. And your challenges give a great platform for that as well. But you've got to be looking at digital as an acquisition tool. And if you're not, well, then, you've got to be asking questions as an organization why you're not doing that. But it's looking at, and that's not to say you have to increase budgets, take a small bit from it, test, as that's so important. We've talked about the importance of CPA, not only CPL. Set clear objectives for challenges to support other areas of your fundraising. For example, from our March Run Challenge, we want to generate 20 advocates for Charity of the Year partnerships. We want to recruit 50 companies to take part. Real clear objectives going in at the front, knowing what you want to do. Don't do it afterwards, but set the objectives at the front. And if you have objectives set, well, then that creates synergy. But also in terms of then when you're budgeting for innovation and development, I think this is key. And I was lucky in the Matter to get real buy-in from board and chief executive for this, is to create a budget line for innovation, but don't have an income target against it. Allow it to be what it is, innovative, development of things, because then that creates that space for people to try things without the pressure of this better work, because it doesn't always work. But usually there's elements of it that work, and then it becomes something that really works. It's so, so important. And this is, anyone who's a musician will notice, so many bands you go into the studio, you jam, and it's that one guitar line, that one hook that then becomes the song. And that's how it works, and that's what's so, so important. So synergy is everybody on their own paths, but all heading in the same direction. Again, think of the band. You've got your classic 4-piece, the Beatles. They're not all playing the same thing, but together it's what creates the magic. So a couple of questions there again to consider.
Should we leave these questions and finish up, Tom, and then answer the specific questions that people have asked? Just because I know people are going to go in about 5 minutes, and I want to.
Perfect, Nick. That sounds good to me.
Talk a little bit about what you're setting up as well, quickly.
Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, so what's next? So I think it's important that charities really change their mindset. A new mindset is really, really needed, because I hear so often people talking about digital fundraising and organizations looking for digital fundraisers. But it's so important that you think digital marketing, not digital fundraising, because digital is a tool to find people who will then do the fundraising for your organization. So it's about reaching out and through the different channels that you have to be able to engage people, get them interested in your organization. But again, if you're thinking of just a bit as fundraising, I think that's the wrong way to go. You really got to get that shift that it's about digital marketing. This is the way corporates operate. They're not thinking about digital shoe sales, for example. Do you know what I mean? They're actually thinking it's a digital marketing to find the people to come to your organization, into the funnel, develop them, and into the appropriate fundraising area then for that individual. It's about working to what works for that individual, and digital is so targeted and allows you to do that. So digital marketing, say, allows you to get closer to potential donors and supporters than ever before. We touched on it. It's a multi-step process. Think cultivation events. Who hasn't had a cultivation event as a fundraiser? where you bring people along to talk to them about your organization, talking about the work that you do. And that's what you got to think about. Digital is just this huge opportunity for cultivation and allowing for that multi-step. You have the control, and most importantly, storytelling is key. Corporates are bending over backwards to try and come up with these amazing stories. Look at any ad that you see about online, on TV, anywhere. They're all trying to come up with these amazing stories. But remember, your organizations all have the most amazing stories. And it's so important that you use them and share them. You're helping so many people. And that's where the magic is. Through your storytelling will bring people to your organization. The key digital marketing tools, social media marketing, that's really what we've been talking about. Email marketing plays a huge role as well in the challenges in terms of your social media marketing. Does it create your leads? Your email marketing is so important then for the conversion, and content marketing. Well, through the sharing of just stories in the matter, a huge amount of content marketing that we did. We really went off the charts with our engagement by just taking a very strict policy on Facebook of just posting patient stories. That's all we were doing, and we didn't use it for announcements and things like that. Use other platforms for that, because that's what people wanted to see and engage with. So I'm just conscious of people's time now, so just run through. So the most important things: know your audience, know where they are and what they are doing there. Don't put out content that it isn't fit to the platform that you're on. So be where your donor is and be relevant to them. And what I think is really important, a key point, is you don't have to be brilliant at everything. Work to the resources and budget that you have. And again, know your donors, be where they are. So if your donor is on Facebook, focus on Facebook. You don't have to be brilliant at Twitter and Snapchat and TikTok, because that's not going to get to your donor. So that's what we did, was refocus at, let's be brilliant at one thing, and then we'll grow out. And that's what we did. We focused on Facebook, and that was the whole point. Anyway, that's what are the things to consider. And then these are questions that you can consider and take away even to your own organization.
Yeah,
Where
and
does
people
digital
are
sit
saying,
within your organization?